Joe Biden, in the dying embers of his presidency, has announced he will allow Ukraine to launch Western missiles deep into Russia. These are weapons such as the Storm Shadows we have given them. So far, the rockets have been used against Russian positions within Ukraine, but not in Russia. Biden had previously ruled this out, along with the leaders of most other NATO countries, who considered it would be a provocation too far. Starmer and Lammy, however, had been pushing for it. It was and still is an absurd idea. This isn't some game. This is a brutal war of attrition that has been going on for over 2 years, and if allowed to get out of control, it could mean global nuclear war. This latest notion adds to the litany of unwise concepts proffered by our foolish politicians, such as imposing a no-fly zone, which would mean NATO shooting down Russian aircraft, giving Zelensky our best aircraft to use, deporting or seizing the assets of any Russian in the UK, or even Western boots on the ground. These have not only been the preserve of Tory boys like Tobias Ellwood or Ben Wallace, we kicked their backsides in the Crimean War and we can do it again, Ben Wallace, but of Labour sabre-rattlers as well. So Labour have been just as tub-thumping about Ukraine as the Conservatives. They continue to act the big tough guy in an army jacket and throw money at the issue while the UK is struggling. They continue to eulogise about Zelensky and strut around in Kiev pointing at things for publicity shots. This criticism is not, I hasten to add, an expression of support for Putin or for Russia. What Putin has done is dreadful, and a clear act of aggression, even considering the long backstory, involving conflict in the Donbass, NATO expansion, and the Western-backed revolution in Ukraine. It has cost not only the Ukrainian people dearly, but his own, and was a needless venture. A limited operation in the Donbass might have been more justified, but not an all-out invasion of Ukraine. It was right to initially support Ukraine in arms, diplomacy and intelligence. However, how long can this go on for? It is my view, as an outsider, there needs to be a negotiated settlement. If it requires some ceding of the Donbass to Russia, that may be a price worth paying. If I was Ukrainian, I would probably not agree, but I'm not. I want both sides to stop dying in huge numbers and the world brought back from the brink. There is now an even higher risk of a world war owing to the situation in the Middle East. Addressing the Ukraine issue would lessen that risk, allowing us to put more efforts into de-escalating the other crisis. If you have this view, people inevitably level this crude accusation at you. Appeaser. Just like Neville Chamberlain, you would have let Hitler walk all over us. The fact is, Hitler was not armed with 3,000 nuclear missiles, and neither were the future allies. Hitler was also trying to conquer the whole of Europe, the UK included. At the very least, it was clear in 1938 he wanted swathes of Poland and Czechoslovakia, and he wanted to humble France and neuter Britain. Putin only wants the Donbass, and to humble Ukraine, despite some claiming he plans to take over NATO countries such as Poland. Even if he desires to in his heart, like the Soviets he used to work for, he won't because of nuclear weapons. It's a different situation entirely. For another example, let's take the Falklands War. There was not much risk to Britain in fighting Argentina, other than exposing the whole fleet to harm. Galtieri was not nuclear armed, had a much inferior force to Hitler, and had internal political chaos. He had no powerful allies backing him, and it was over quickly. However, imagine it had dragged on as a bloody stalemate for over 2 years, with tens of thousands of lives being thrust into the meat grinder. It would then have been pertinent for a neutral to say, "Okay, you're gonna have to come to a compromise over that remote territory." Our cause would have been fully tested by military action, and as a consequence of our war machine failing, a negotiation would have had to settle it. Fortunately, we won and our cause was vindicated. I have, then, a pragmatic outlook towards the Ukraine war. Many on both the left and right share this, but Labour does not seem to, at least not publicly. They continue to make shallow political capital out of a mess that is costing us vastly and costing its victims even more so. It is not a tenable policy and is likely to become even more impractical now Trump has won the US election. The Western world is sure to toe the line, and their support for Zelensky will ebb away as Trump and Vance seek a deal. Some, of course, will agree with the Labour government's current position. Ukraine is a subject that understandably prompts much emotion. However, if you do share these misgivings about the war, suffice to say the behaviour of Starmer's administration should worry you. Those who do fervently support Ukraine are likely to see a classic reversal from Starmer when the inevitable Western climb down begins. As usual, we will both be left unsatisfied.